how have you juggled these two? Because I think that is something that majority of leaders wrestle with. And sometimes it's good enough reason for people to say, it's not the right time for me to start because maybe my children are young, or gosh, I've got a family, I can't commit to this. How have you balanced? What are your strategies here? What have you done? What's the magic? So welcome to B3 Inspire, a community determined to empower you, help you build your foundation, help you believe in your potential and become unstoppable. Today, we are very, very excited to have with us someone who's been in leadership for many, many years, somebody that I personally look up to, one of my role models in leadership, Jo Conduit. I happen to work with this amazing leader here as part of my journey, serving as a deputy head under her headship. And I was so fortunate to have learned so much. And I truly attribute some of my traits of leadership, some of the values, some of the foundation that I built, which I acquired from this wonderful person that we've got today with us. And Jo, thank you for joining us. We would like to start by asking you to share with us a little bit about your path in leadership. And you have held various positions, and now you're one of the leaders, executive leaders in a very renowned academy trust, still impacting the lives of many, many children. And we're excited to have you here to share your journey, your leadership journey with us. So tell us, Jo, how did that all start?
Well, firstly, what an introduction. Yeah, I don't think I've had an introduction like that, Betty, and it's very kind of you to say that I inspired you, because I think you equally inspired me as well, and I think we were a really good team together, and I think we learned a lot from each other. Yeah, so back to where I started. So I started as a teacher in North London, and actually even before that, how did I end up as a teacher? It was one of those things, I think, where I always wanted to be a teacher, partly because I don't remember actually wanting to be anything else. And I think it was from a very early age, from playing schools as a 5-year-old, but also being inspired by somebody myself at school, a head teacher who looked out for me at a time when my parents' marriage fell apart, and it was a bit of a difficult time. And he, head teacher who used to take my brother and I, meet us every Friday afternoon for a cup of tea.
Wow.
At the time, my brother and I hated that. We used to have to go to the head teacher's office on a Friday afternoon. We used to roll our eyes at the thought of doing that. But actually, I think what he subtly did through that was really empower me to think about what I wanted to do. And I still look back, I still call them Mr. Cole moments, because I think the way he took that time to think about me and took his time out to make me feel important really made a difference. And I often think that back to that time and about what inspired me to be a teacher was Mr. Cole. I spoke recently at a trust-wide event where I often talked about Mr. Cole moments, and I think it's about getting to know people and knowing what those Mr. Cole moments are really, and I think they're really key. So that's why I went into teaching. I started as a teacher. I had the privilege of being a National Numeracy Strategy Advisor, and that took me into leadership in a different role across a number of schools. Really gave me the opportunity to work much more widely with, and I see it as a professional development when you're working with other schools, so I learned lots. Met lots of people from other boroughs, from across the country, had some of the most amazing training. In those days there was lots of money in that, so we used to go away to hotels and spend a week
luxury,
immersed with other educators. Really amazing piece of professional development, and I was really lucky actually that the local authority where I worked, Islington, had been taken over by Cambridge Education, who were run by a big multinational company called Mott MacDonald. And that gave opportunities to me that I wouldn't have otherwise had. So although I was doing lots of work in Islington, leading on opportunities to lead, we talk about leadership, but leading on assessment, I was the local authority lead for Sacre, so we really got our fingers into lots of pies. One of the most amazing things was I had the opportunity to work both nationally and internationally, so rolling out phonics training at the time, because phonics was a meeting, believe it or not, across the country, and also the opportunity to work internationally. So we did some work. One of the best pieces of professional development I ever did was a number of weeks in New York, looking at and inspecting early year settings in New York, from little PVI or their equivalent settings through to early years provisions in big charter schools. So it was just an amazing experience. And from there I decided I wanted to do my own PQH. I'd been out of school for some time at that point and thought I need to go back in, otherwise you lose your credibility.
That's right.
And ended up doing an associate headship at a school where the head and the deputy were nearing retirement, and it was a really great experience because they really valued me being there. Sometimes that's not the case, and I valued the opportunity to learn from them. And then was pulled into an interim headship, and my assistant at the time agreed for me to go and do a secondment on an interim as a headship, and then I never looked back. I ended up staying at that school because once you get your grip into a school, it's hard to do that for a term.
Right.
Yeah, and so moved my way through, did a couple of headships. A trust leader now, so that's where I am now, both as a chief operating officer and then as a bit of a stint as an interim CEO.
Excellent. Wow, what a journey. And there's always that person that inspires us. I mean, that one of my favorite quotes that I always share with my team is by Rita Patson. It's every child deserves a champion, and adults who do not give up on them and insist that they become the best that they could possibly be. That power of connection and that relationship is really key. And how many years now you're still talking about this person being part of your journey and inspiring you to go into headship? What an amazing story.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, Jo, but in terms of course, you've got children, you've got two lovely girls, and balancing leadership and parenting is one of that I would say it is a challenge. I mean, being a mother and a parent myself and being a leader, how have you juggled these two? Because I think that is something that majority of leaders wrestle with. And sometimes it's good enough reason for people to say, it's not the right time for me to start because maybe my children are young, or gosh, I've got a family, I can't commit to this. How have you balanced? What are your strategies here? What have you done? What's the magic? Share with us. Come on, we need some of these tips. What have you used to help you keep you grounded as a parent, whilst also being this exceptional leader who is just excelling up and up? What is the secret here?
I think firstly to admit that there is no magic wand at all, and definitely and I think none of us get that right. And I think that's the first thing, is to accept that none of us are going to get it right all the time, and there is always compromise. And it's interesting, I think, as a woman, to start my journey thinking you can have everything, and you can, but along that way you're going to feel some guilt and you're probably going to have to compromise. So just a bit of background, I've got a 20-year-old who's now at university, and that might come into my conversation because that's been a bit of a struggle for many reasons. And I've got an 18-year-old who's just in the midst of studying for A-levels, so I'm right in it there. And I think it's an interesting point you make, Betty, around people putting that leadership jump off, because I think, interestingly, I would say that my children needed me more as they got older, as teenagers, than perhaps when they were younger. And whereas some of those needs could have been met by other people when they were younger, actually those needs really need their mum sometimes, when friendship issues become in the way, boyfriend issues come in the way, where actually it isn't somebody else who can fulfill that. Having said that, though, I think one of the things to remember is that raising children, it takes a village. And we think about that in terms of our schools and the pupils we serve. It takes a village, but I think equally raising children. I've been lucky. I had parents around who, in fact, two father and a father-in-law who really helped out, not necessarily the traditional grandmother role, but actually my father-in-law lived in Norfolk and used to come down once a week to pick the girls up from school every week. My father lives in Muswell Hill and he would do the same. So they were around a lot. In those days, we could have au pairs easily. We won't get political on that, but actually there is, generally that I had some amazing au pairs who are still part of our family and who I still keep in touch with, who I think added a lot to my children's lives. And I've got lots of really close friends, and I think, your children knowing there are more than just your parents rooting for them is actually a really important part of my children's life now. I think they know that if I didn't pick up the phone to them, there'd be somebody else who would. And I think that's actually led them to be the strong young women that they are now. And I don't think we should feel guilty about that. I would always have tried, if I could, to be at a sports day or a performance, but that isn't always the case. And I think so long as there is a friendly face in that audience, that's what matters, because I don't think that always needs to be you. I'm also lucky, and I probably should mention, I'm married to an amazing man who is also a school leader, actually. So we've both, we understand where each other come from. But I think as well that we very much have an equal partnership, and he sees childcare as much as his responsibilities as mine. He's an amazing cook. I wouldn't even dare go near the kitchen. So we've managed it in that way that we didn't, it wasn't always my responsibility to be the person who's there to pick up those pieces, and I think that's really important because actually their relationship is as strong as my relationship with them as well. So that's not to say I wouldn't say that it isn't difficult, and there are times when I think I've compromised one way or the other. But I think my daughter has just embarked on a education studies, wants to be a teacher at university. And so
there is this saying that it's kind of running the family. Boys, I hope you're not listening to this conversation because maybe not a teacher.
Despite everything they've seen from both parents, she still wants to be a teacher. So I think actually we haven't done too bad a job actually. We haven't put her off. The other one said she wouldn't go near teachers, but the eldest definitely.
Thank you for sharing that, Jo. I mean, that power of utilising or maximising your network is really key. And it's sometimes we might feel, maybe Jo is sharing that she feels really lucky that she had grandparents around, but you might not necessarily have maybe grandparents around, but just check who is within your network that you can maximise that relationship. And I like what you said about the children being able to pick up the call. And sometimes as women, we just feel like we're superheroes, isn't it? Like we've got to do it all. And we don't. Really, is there an aunt who can be of help, who the children can pick up the phone to? The bus should not stop with you. And I mean, like your husband being able to support, it's not just you. And if you are a leader out there thinking, or someone thinking of aspiring to become a leader or making the leap and using your children probably as an excuse of, I need to get them maybe a bit older, or I need to wait until they get to teenage, the message is really clear here. We don't think there is ever time for you to step into it. Like I always say, feel the fear and do it anyway, but maximizing that connection and that network around you, it's absolutely incredible, and something that maybe we need to really focus a bit more on that, and for the children as well, so they know around them there's that solid connections all around them, because it takes a village, as you said, to raise a child. Right, so you share in terms of like values and of course parenting, leadership. Where does it all come from, and how does that all pull together to make you a better leader and a better parent?
Well, firstly to say, I think you learn a lot from being a leader about being a parent, and you learn a lot from being a parent about being a leader. So I think those two things go hand in hand. And I think some of those things around developing that culture happen incidentally, and some of it are deliberate actions. And I think it's a big ask to ask parents to trust you with their children.
Yeah.
And I never take that lightly. And I think that comes from being a parent and understanding. And we would have always reminded our staff of that actually often in really, and we dealt with some challenging situations with parents, but actually in most cases, even though it doesn't feel like it, when you're dealing with a challenging parent, it's coming from a place of them wanting the best for their child.
Totally.
And I think if you always remember that, then actually that helps you through some of those really difficult times. And I think there's some deliberate things we did as leaders. We absolutely were on that gate every morning and every evening without fail, because I know that actually if you as a parent can start that day, and sometimes you can get into the gate at 9 o'clock in the morning, for some parents it's been a huge struggle. And I think we shouldn't underestimate that. And being there and being the friendly face that smiles and says, we've got this for you, mum or dad or auntie or granny or carer, then actually can make a big difference. And I think those are some deliberate things you can do. I used to leave my diary free most days if I could. It wasn't always possible, but up until about 9:15, because I knew that there might be a parent I need to say, do you want to have 5 minutes in my room, mum? 5 minutes in my room, dad? I'm being able to just calm situations, make them feel more at ease, actually did stop some of those future issues developing. And I think that was something that we really built and instilled in all of our teachers as well. Our teachers were always on the gate, they were always there, always tried to make sure that they were available. And I think that those values developed who we were as an organisation. And it's interesting, I'm just reflecting now on my own daughter, and part of why I'm so proud of the fact that she's at university studying to be a teacher. She's had lots of challenges. You'll remember Betsy.
Yes.
She was diagnosed with epilepsy while I was at school. While I was at the school with you, Betty, and then she was also dyslexic. There were also other diagnoses on the way. So she struggled with life and it wasn't always easy. And I think actually that also helped me in terms of being a leader. But I remember one day when she'd had a seizure and we had an open morning for school. And it was for the new reception intake, and we were by then we'd become quite a popular school, Betty. So they were big events. There would be 40, 50, 60 parents in a room of a very small school, so it was quite hard to manage that many. And I remember she'd had a seizure, but I was running this open day, so I rushed home to pick her up, got her in the car, brought her back, laid her out on the floor in my office and said, it's okay, I'm just going to do this open day and then I'll be here for you. And went upstairs to do the open day and stand up just about to speak in front of all of the parents. And the office manager came upstairs, knocked on the door and said, can I have a word? And she said, Jo, you need to go be a mum. You're making the wrong decisions. This isn't you. This is not what you tell us to do. You need to go and be a mum. I can show these parents around. And I think it was a real moment of thinking, actually, I probably hadn't got the balance right there, but actually feeling that I had got the balance right with the culture at the school, that she understood those values. I wasn't living by our values at that moment, but also that she felt able to come and knock on the door and say, Jo, leave now. And I think that was a real moment, I think, of clarity for me.
I give that back to you in a sense of it takes leaders who understand that power of creating a safe culture where everyone feels that their voice is valued and heard. For that office manager to come to you and actually challenge you on your own values. I don't think many spaces out there or many places out there have got this unique approach, and what a powerful way of the office manager going, no, this is not how we do it here. Yes, you might have those parents, like 50 parents waiting, But at this moment, that priority is wrong. Is there someone else who can handle that? And surely there were people there who stepped into the shoe and managed the situation really well. You know, you've led that successive leadership. So you've had people you've empowered who could step in and go and be a mum at that point. But wow, what a powerful story. And what I really love as well, Jo, is the fact that, yes, you are right. Your daughter was diagnosed right in the middle of you being building up your leadership career. You know, anybody or probably myself would have gone, oh my goodness, maybe I can do it. I can do it. I've got to be a mom. And the fact that you persevered through it and supported your daughter, and she's in university as we speak with all this diagnosis. For me, that is really inspiring and goes to show that we can do it. Totally can do it. And it's having those right strategies around you to enable you feel the fear and still do it anyway. Thank you for sharing that. Got quite a lot on your plate as a leader. Yes. How are you juggling this leadership and also parenting, ensuring that you're looking after yourself? Because, of course, there's that fine line of that stress and burnout. So, what are your secrets? What do you do to ensure that you're looking after yourself whilst also being, you know, that great leader out there and being that fantastic mum at home?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because often you become the bottom of the pile. But I think, again, it goes back to you need to be able to role model that to your staff. You need to be able to role model it to your children, that they need to take time for themselves as well. So while I will often work long hours and, you know, way beyond what my contracted hours are, as any leader will say, actually what I do try and do is when I've said I'm on holiday, I try to be on holiday and I try to be present. So tomorrow I'm off on a trip with my husband.
Enjoy well end.
Unless there's an absolute emergency, I won't look at any emails and I'll try to switch off. And I think I have been quite good at compartmentalising work and home. I think that also finding what works for you, because actually I'm an owl. I'm better at night, and so I was quite happy to do, you know, spend time with the family, eat dinner, bath and bedtime when they were still into bathing and bedtiming them, and pick up work later on. For my husband, that would not have been his thing. He's a lark, he gets up early. That is not my thing. And so I think finding your thing. The other thing I do is I know you do that as well, Betty. You fell in love with the gym. I never thought I would, but I fell in love with the gym. And so if I'm ever working from home, I try and make sure I get up. I could just be snoozing and snoozing. I'm told you I'm not a lark, but actually I do try to get up early and go to the gym first thing. I think it's a great thing for your endorphins. It feels great if you've done a gym workout before you start work. You really do feel that you're winning. You know, you can go to the gym and be back and at 8 o'clock and ready to start work. So that's made a real difference, I think, to myself. And also just as you get older, keeping your body moving as well as your mind. But I think probably the key thing is to find an environment where that have the same values as you and where they understand that well-being is important. And that family is important, and happy staff means happy pupils, and good outcomes come from that. It's interesting, isn't it? I used to spend a lot of time saying that the focusing on pupil outcomes and that the staff were perhaps secondary to that. And I think over the course of my life as a leader, I've realised that putting staff first actually makes the difference to pupil outcomes in the end. Happy staff make happy children, and happy children usually means better outcomes. So
yeah, it's interesting. Of course, it's that saying that you can't pour from an empty cup, isn't it? Yeah. So you finding what works for you, like going to the gym and, of course, you know, knowing that this is the time that I could work extra hours without me being burnt out. and then play hard. I know you want to do hard, of course, well deserved. Why not? And it's just finding that balance.
And
Yeah.
I think it's exactly the same, Betty, if you look at teachers. You know, would you want your child to be in a class with a burnt out teacher who's stressed, who hasn't got time, who's not feeling 100% themselves? No. You know that in front of your children, you might want somebody who's energetic, who is feeling in a good place, who's got the time and the energy to give to your children. And I think we need to do that and model that ourselves as leaders, and then ensure that our teachers and sort of staff that work in our schools feel that they can take time for themselves as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Lastly, I am just thinking in our community, there are people who are thinking of stepping into leadership or people who are already into leadership. You've shared a lot. But one tip for someone who is aspiring to become maybe a head teacher. I mean, you heard my podcast, not many people of color are in headship. And I know you are somebody that absolutely championed this. You're very passionate when it comes to that. What would be your advice? One advice that you give to somebody who needs to take that next leap or make that bold step into leadership, and someone who is already into leadership, what would be one advice that you would want to give to them?
I think maybe the one advice, maybe something I've already said,
Right.
which I think is finding the right environment.
Mm.
Don't go for a position because it happens to be free and it happens to be convenient. I think you need to go and choose the right role for you in the right environment. Go and visit, look at what those values are, look at how people are being treated in the environment. Does that align with your values? And then I think things are easier. I think
Incredible conversation. Jo, thank you for joining us on B3 Inspire. Thing I've always admire you, as you know, and you inspire me on many levels when it comes to leadership. And I just want to say thank you for the lessons that I've always learned from you, and I'm still learning from you. And I want to say to our listeners, wow, go out there, feel that fear, and do it anyway. If this message, this conversation has inspired you, would like you to subscribe to B3 Inspire, comment below sharing maybe one of the strategies that Jo has shared. How are you going to apply it? We would like to hear from you. Click the thumbs up button, and until we meet again on our next video, remember to build your foundation, believe in your potential, and become unstoppable. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Jo.
thank you for having me. Thank you.